Hello, I am Octavia Randolph, and today is December 30th, 2020. We are standing in the Visby Botanical Garden on the island of Gotland, and I would like to introduce you to some friends of mine. These are trees that were planted in 1855, the first year of the garden's creation, which means that this year they are 165 years old. So please take a walk with me so you can meet some of them. My favorite tree in the entire garden is this beautiful beech. It's a tree that to me has a natural majesty. The wood of the beech is used to flavor ale during brewing and also to smoke meats and cheeses. The tiny beech nuts that beech trees produce were once valued for food, but few people gather them now, although pigs still love them. An elm tree. Elms are water resistant and very stately. They were once a common fixture of many urban boulevards, but in the 20th century many of them succumbed to so-called Dutch elm disease. Happily, new disease-resistant varieties have been developed. Elms have the unfortunate habit of dropping perfectly healthy boughs without warning. Rudyard Kipling warns against them in his poem celebrating oak and ash and thorn. Ellum she hateth mankind, and waiteth till every gust be laid, to drop a limb on the head of him that anyway trusts her shade. You might recall that this is the way that Toki's father meets his death in Sidroc the Dane. And now we're coming to a larch. This, also planted in 1855, is a majestic European larch. You can see it's right by the ruins of St. Olaf's Church. The larch is an exceptionally graceful tree, and it's interesting because it's a conifer which is also deciduous. In other words, it loses its needles in the winter. In the fall, this tree is a brilliant yellow, almost an acid yellow. It's really striking. The wood of the larch is waterproof, and it's oftentimes used in boat building. This is a weeping ash, an unusual ash tree in my experience. So the ash, of course, is the first letter of the Old English alphabet, that ligature of A and E together, which I use in the names of Alfred and Alfwin. Ash is also the name of the first man in Norse belief, and his wife was named Embla for the elm tree. So you see how important trees were, that the first humans in the Norse cosmology bore their names. In Old Norse and Anglo-Saxon belief, the world tree, Yggdrasil, was an ash tree. That was at the center of the cosmos, and that is the tree from which Odin, or Woden as the Saxons called him, hung himself for 9 days to discover the secret of the runes, which thus gave us the gift of writing. This spreading mass of green directly in front of us before the pond is a yew. It is 165 years old, but they can grow far older. There are documented yews in Britain that are over 2,000 years old. Yews are a symbol of immortality. They're oftentimes found in churchyards and burial grounds. And yew wood is greatly prized by archers because it makes the best longbows. Just behind the yew tree is another elm, one of tremendous height. And this is a hanging rowan. This rowan is a venerable stump. It's not too much taller than I am, but it is still alive, and I commend the Botanical Garden for keeping it. Hanging rowans are also called quickbeams. That's their Old English name, and they provide clusters of dark, reddish, edible berries. In the United States, they're called service berries. Not only are the berries used in soups and stews, they can be made up as jam and jelly. And the Rowan berry is also used to flavor ale. The linden, or as it's known in Britain, the lime tree. These live for many hundreds of years. There is one in Gloucestershire which is at least 2,000 years old. It has fragrant flowers, and I'm sure the bees here in the Botanical Garden love it in the summer. Linden was an important wood for the making of shields, along with alderwood, as men always sought lightweight but tough woods which would not easily split under repeated blows. Very close to the linden is a hornbeam tree, its branches spreading out towards the center of the garden. Also in the class of 1855 is this ginkgo. Ginkgos are always extremely straight and oftentimes quite tall. These trees have changed little in 270 million years. We have fossils from the Permian age to show us that. Ginkgos were once widespread around the world, but they became extinct everywhere except in China, where all of our modern trees come from. This is a red German maple, and I hope that you can see that the bark is actually a distinct pinkish color. And this is a beautiful example of a black pine. So a German maple was planted in 1855, and they also planted a Hungarian maple that year. And this is it. The sycamore, or London plane tree. The plane tree is called the sycamore in the United States, and the Botanic Garden has a number of very beautiful specimens. Not only is the bark full of interest, but the sap can be gathered, as with sugar maples, by tapping and boiled down to make a syrup, or left to slightly ferment, which will turn into a kind of wine. If you do this with your sycamores, let me know, as I'd love to taste it. I was able to identify 21 trees still living in the Botanical Garden, which were planted in 1855, thus making them 165 years old. And this has been a representative sample of those that are still here. Thank you so much for joining me on my walk so that you could get to know them as well.